have a very special guest coming on who I'm very excited to talk about. And I know I always say that, but it's always so true. Every now and then something comes across my email that stands out to me and kind of highlights itself and jumps off the page and says, you got to talk to this person. I have a very good friend of mine who's a publicist who has, been sending me guest suggestions for probably 9 years now. She was one of the original ones I started working with when I first began radio. And, I have to say, this woman, her story, the bio that she sent me was just fascinating. And I was so excited that we were able to book her. And I'm very happy that she's here. And I think you'll all agree with me. She is a driven, highly successful network TV editor and journalist. Her name is Cate Montana. She was raised in a man's world to be just one of the guys. While on assignment, a chance encounter with a shaman sets her on a path of unearthing the elusive power of the feminine. In a raw and wrenching recapitulation of her life, Cate discovers the devastating absence of feminine values and qualities within herself and the withering personal and global consequences of having only one paradigm available for her to express through, the masculine P, values of power, possessions, profit, and progress. An intelligent, compelling, honest, and frequently funny memoir of a modern woman's search for her own unrecognized feminine spirit, Unearthing Venus, My Search for the Woman Within, a memoir, is an honest and frequently funny, beautiful, enjoyable book. I have to tell you, I had a really fun time reading this, and it was quite refreshing. And the reason I asked to have her come on tonight was because, so often I sit on the air and I talk about the divine male and the divine feminine energies merging together to create the cosmic child, that innocent, pure, imaginative type of level of mind that we're all capable of doing. And her story from coming from such a powerful global mass kind of, platform where people really just have access to her in venues that the mainstream culture really is just so used to, for her to step forward and to share her story and to really see what was lacking in that platform was quite fascinating. And I'm really excited to talk to her about that, to see what her journey, through that was, and to share it with all of you. The feminine consciousness, I feel very strongly, is returning. We're going back to our roots, especially America, as we go through this big change. We see all of these problems on the platform, the global platform, the home platform, really the country that we're going through. We're all going through together. And we realize, I believe we are truly realizing that what's missing in this paradigm here in the United States and also globally is a strong connection to the feminine principle and understanding what that means, because so many of us have grown up without it. We don't even know what's missing. If we don't know it, we don't know what's missing. So tonight we're going to talk about her story. She's going to share some valuable information and thoughts on this process, and really what really stands out when we talk to people who have experiences is that experience, is the story of coming from this to that. And oftentimes when I bring guests on the show, it is that story, that point A to point B, that grand transformation from going from one type of life to another that really makes me want to bring them on the air and share that with all of you. So Cate Montana, welcome and thank you for being here.
Hi, Hillary. It's Kate.
Oh, hi, Kate. Oh, good. I was hoping we would get you back.
Me too. I tuned into the show and I was like, can she hear me? No.
Well, welcome. And, that's live radio for you. Sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. So we just move on.
Absolutely. I've been in live radio, been in live TV, and it's a good adrenaline rush sometimes.
Well, you sit patiently hoping, right? Well, welcome. And I hope you heard the introduction, because I was talking about with everybody who's joined us what an extraordinary gift you have given the planet, really, with this story and this book, Unearthing Venus, My Search for the Woman Within. And I am so excited to talk to you about where you come from, the massive platform, public platform that you came from, working with ESPN and ABC and NBC and CNN and all of these really effective, with multi-million people watching you, how it is to go from that to really embracing the fact that that is missing the feminine principle. So where do we start? I mean, how did this all begin for you, really?
Well, I did miss your intro, but I gather that people are aware that I had a background in television and then communications. And I was working as a journalist for the National Native American paper Indian Country Today, and I was writing an article and doing an interview. And in the interview, this gentleman was telling the story about an Amazonian tribe, the Chuara tribe, in the Brazilian rainforest. And he was talking about their culture, the gender orientation, and how balanced their society was. The men did kind of guide jobs. They hunted and fished and cut down trees to make canoes and huts, and the women did women things, took care of the children and did all the domestic things. And both sexes were equally represented on tribal council. But there was one job, he said, that the women and only the women could do, and the very survival of the tribe depended upon the women doing this one job. And of course, I'm sitting there in the middle of the interview, and my mind clicks to, yeah, we have babies, and and I said that. And I said that to him, and he laughed, and he went, no, he said, you've got to understand, unlike in the West, these people really have a grasp of sexual psychology. They understand that the masculine tendency in life is to express through doing and endless doing, and that the masculine as a characteristic is represented by a very aggressive driving force that is task-oriented, goal-oriented, and that the men, he said, they would hunt until there was nothing left to kill. They would fish until there was nothing in the rivers. They would cut down the trees until there was nothing left to cut. And he said, the women, on the other hand, are in their bodies. They are aligned with the life force. They are aligned intuitively with the needs of the community. And they're in balance with the environment. He said, so the men understanding their nature and understanding the feminine nature depend on the women to tell them when to stop. And when I heard that, Hillary, it blew my mind. I couldn't wrap my head around the idea of women telling men to do, socially, as a cultural thing, telling men to do anything.
Let alone stop in politics or government or in any industry, really.
Corporatocracy, in profiteering, you name it. And I was so shocked. And then the second thing that hit me, when I hung up the phone and I wrote the article, and that story would not leave me. And because I realized at that point that I had been raised as a liberated woman to be liberated in a masculine role, and my whole life had been spent hunting and fishing and cutting down the trees, just like the guys.
Well, that's interesting. That's because you know what, Kate? I think a lot of people can relate to that. Everybody listening right now, if you've ever had some kind of event happen in your life where you realized you were liberated to be a man. Basically, whether it's in research or writing books or whatever, you're exactly right with that. That's right on.
It blew my mind, Hillary, because I've never seen this. I was so self-congratulatory that, patting myself on my own back about how liberated I was. I turned my back and ignored the entire feminist movement because, well, why do I need feminism? I'm so bloody liberated, I don't even need feminism. But it had never occurred to me that I was liberated to work in a world, in a culture where I'd been raised in masculine schools that had been in educational systems that had been developed by men, following ideals and philosophies that had been developed by men, to go into a marketplace that had been developed by men, to support men's ideals of profit and power and possessions. It never crossed my mind. I was just so jazzed to be on the playing field with the guys. I was like, yeah, we're going to go toe-to-toe, and I'm going to prove myself in the world. And I was so busy doing that. Yet at the same time, there was this incredible sense of something missing at the same time. And I didn't have a clue what it was.
Until what? Until what was the changing moment for you that made you realize what that element was exactly?
Well, Actually, it's a two-prong answer. It was a two-stage thing. It was early in my 30s. I recognized that I had done everything that society and my parents and my teachers and my priests and the nuns, I went to a Catholic girls' school, had told me to do in life that would bring me happiness and fulfillment. Hadn't done that. I'd gotten a good education. I'd kept my nose clean. I'd studied hard. I'd gone out into the world. I'd created a career, an incredible career in network television as a sports engineer. And I married the right guy from my same socioeconomic bracket. The only thing I didn't do was get pregnant and have a baby. And I already knew that wasn't the answer. And so at about age 30, between 30 to 32, I took my first pause. I actually did stop, and I got myself out of the rat race because it hadn't brought me satisfaction. And I was like, well, what the hell? What am I going to do here if all of these things that I was told would guarantee my happiness and fulfillment in life, and they haven't, and I'm left with this void? Well, where else can I turn? Well, the only place to turn was within. And so in my early 30s, I started on the quote-unquote spiritual path, looking for a different kind of an answer. And what I only understood in retrospect was that I totally turned my back on my Christian religion because it had never given me the kind of answers or satisfaction that I thought that was logical or made any sort of sense to me. And so I fell into New Age practices. I learned how to meditate, and so that was the first stage. But only in retrospect now, Hillary, do I realize that so much of what I gained in my spiritual work was also wrapped up in this really subtle masculine modeling. And it was all about striving for enlightenment.
A lot of us know that feeling. We can all relate to that somehow.
We can all relate to that. But, by God, I was going to, just like I was going to compete in network television, by God, I was going to compete with myself in the spiritual arena. So, I drove myself mercilessly in my spiritual practices and as I say, all very goal-oriented. And it was all about getting out there, out of my body and out there to God somewhere. And even though I knew intellectually that, God is all things, God is the earth as well, it's spirit made manifest. Yes, I had that nice intellectual understanding, and I could nod and say, yes, spirit is in all things. But then I would always, the striving was always to go outside of myself, and certainly outside of my body. And I didn't know that I had this incredibly innate, enculturated bias against the body. And so then we come to stage 2, which was when I heard that, I was in the middle of that interview and told the story about the women in the Shuar tribe. And that was what put me on the second half of the path, was to go, oh my God, because I started to look at everything in my life through the lens of gender and how I'd been enculturated as a woman to think, act, set goals, dream, even make love, even approach sex like a man. And the more I looked, Hillary, the more it became more and more obvious. So, and then I was left with the question, well, what the hell is the feminine? Because
that's a great question.
That's how I start the book. What do you know about woman?
Well, I have to tell you here, I just have to say this because it's so relevant to what I hear day in and day out in all circles, is what is that? What does it mean? Is it this? Is it that? People really just don't know what it means to be that. They have ideas, but where do those ideas come from? Where are they indoctrinated that the feminine means this? Beautiful.
Yep, exactly. And so that started me on the whole path of investigating, well, what is this? And it became painfully obvious to me that though I was very intellectually developed, and I had great heart, but I'd never been encouraged to put heart into practice because I'd been taught told over and over again, that to be emotional or to be heart-based or to put the concerns of others alongside equal to my own, that, hell, I'd never get ahead in life. And that those were nice ideals, but they really don't work in the real world. And I was like, well, yeah. Well, what real world are we building and creating by limping along on half, like humanity? What I'm seeing is that we're like a two-cylinder car, and we're driving along down the road, but we're only hitting on one cylinder. We're only doing it the masculine way.
Do you find, Cate, that this is something that's changing, or do you see that it's just kind of cracking the surface of being seen for the first time?
I think it's just cracking the surface of being seen. And I'm fascinated by watching all of the various hoopla. I have a Google alert on the word feminist and feminism, and I'm fascinated to see all of the kind of the infighting and the question marks and is it this and is it that and is it the ability of Miley Cyrus to be able to take her clothes off and mimic sex on stage, is that feminism? And I'm like, and part of me has been puzzled by it, but and then the other day I just realized that I think what we're expressing for the first time as women and the first time as human beings, we're noodling on this question. And so it's coming up as sexual freedom, it's coming up as economic freedom, it's coming up as all these different aspects of is it okay to express this way? And is this feminism? Well, is it feminine? Well, yes, I suppose. That's one way of looking at it. But then we get into the whole real enormous realm, and it's a subtle one, of how do you define masculine and feminine? Because the moment we use those words, masculine and feminine, we think he and she. We think sexual gender opposites. And so we always bring this cloud, this program of sexual orientation the moment we use the very words. But the truth of the matter is that men and women, we have masculine and feminine in all of us. And we know this, being spiritual students of life. And that men are more wired toward what I call the penis values. And women are more oriented towards the vagina values and the penis values. It was so funny when I started, thinking about this, and I was very hesitant to use the P word. Even my publishing company was like, "Can you say that?" I thought, well, everybody uses the word vagina. Can't we use the word penis?
You can say it on my show.
I can say it on your show. Yay, Hillary! But when I was looking at, what are the masculine attributes? What really seems to define the current presentation of the masculine? And it's just like power, possessions, profit, property, progress, product-oriented, end result-oriented, prowess, proof, give me proof, all the tangible things, physicality, pride, polarity is in opposition, performance-oriented. And I was just like, wow, those are all starting with P, so I guess I can use the penis word. And then I looked at women, and I was
laugh.
Like,
I didn't say I wouldn't giggle.
and so a whole different set of characteristics show up, like surrender and willingness to trust and focus on relationship and patience and sharing and process and mystery and chaos and gentleness, peace. So, of course, married together, you have a whole human being. And we all have these qualities within us. And so trying to figure out what the feminine is, I think it's really important to move away from this polarized expression. Yes, we can look at ourselves, man and woman, through these lenses, and it's very important, just like the Shuar tribe down in the Amazon, understand human tendencies, the tendencies of the masculine, the tendencies of the feminine. And then they work socially to enable both genders to work together consciously, which is kind of like an externalized representation of the spiritual path, the journey that we're all individually taking, which is to become whole human beings. And I think part of where we're headed as a society, and I think one of the greatest spiritual talismans of our day, is that the feminine force is rising up and is starting to push its way into the forefront of cultural awareness to take its place and its stance. And the most important thing, and here's what I think so far that most of the feminist sites and so much attention hasn't gotten to this point yet, is what we really need to start focusing on are values.
A lot of people don't know what those are. I mean, a lot of people really don't understand what it is because it's something they feel they've inherited from other people or they carry on from what they were raised from. You bring up a really good, valid point by circling it very well, kind of making it the circumpunct. We're at the center of this vast changing world, and you're absolutely right. We do polarize divine male, divine female, the feminine, the masculine. But what about just saying, the cosmic human evolution, the human being? I mean, we really are trained in the New Age kind of wordage with that, and I'm guilty of that myself. Is just labeling that way and keeping that kind of polarity going. It's like keeping the two halves of the brain separated and not really acknowledging the full impact of merging the two of those so that we can be one in that sense within. When we talk about we're all one, and it seems very unicornish and daisy fields, and everybody kind of goes, oh yeah, that's what I want, but they have no idea how to do it or what that means or how to actually manifest that, which brings up something you do talk about, this common thing where it's like manifestation overload. It's like a spiritual kind of materialism. Can you touch on that a little bit? Because you do a good job of talking about that in the book too.
Absolutely. And I kind of touched on it already, is when I dove into New Thought, New Age spirituality, it was very goal-oriented. It was very masculine in its own right. And then as I'm going merrily along, I ended up working in marketing with the filmmakers of What the Bleep Do We Know? Well, What the Bleep Do We Know and then The Secret were the two great iconic films that came out marrying physics, quantum physics, and consciousness, and the impact of the observer on the quantum field. So all of a sudden we've got, oh my God, my intent, my focus, we've leapfrogged way beyond positive thinking and gone to, vision boards and making lists and manifesting and keeping our minds straight and all of this is very masculinized intellectualism of spirituality and very goal-oriented. It's all about manifesting what you want, and the more you can manifest and the better you are at it, the more spiritual you are. And talk about pressure. I mean,
yeah.
God. How did you manifest that cold? Oh dear. Obviously your thinking isn't right. And, and our thinking will never be right. Thinking is, our thought process, our minds are a tool, Hillary. And used properly, it's just kind of like a hammer. You can build a house with a hammer, or you can hit somebody in the head and kill them with it. We've got to manage the tool of the mind, a little bit better. And I think the way we do that is by introducing the heart. And because, even physiologically, if you look at the structure of the heart itself, it actually has a very large internalized nerve plexus, where actually biologists and physiologists are beginning to realize that the heart is actually like a second brain. And the heart's electromagnetic field is 60 times more powerful than the brain's. And we've all had, the experience where, we'll be in a situation and we simply respond. And, it's like our heart leads us and we say something or we do something or take action before our mind really even figured out what was going on. And that's the heart's capacity to lead And I think that's, so far we've got the brain leading, and it's all about the brain. And, back to New Age spirituality, it's been so much a focus on materializing and manifesting and intending and thinking, and the abstract, masculine, 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 masculine. So when we start introducing the heart field to this, then we get into a whole different value set, and we get back into the vagina values. Surrender. Give it up. Don't be so driven. Stop. Be with the process. Be with the mystery. Be with the beauty of the process and the beauty of the mystery. Be in the chaos in it. Feel. Don't be afraid. You feel it all. It's not all bliss and unicorns and love and light. Life is messy. And I think, once we start expanding our value structures from all the goal orientation of having and doing, and expand it to include more feminine qualities and values. Oh my God, Hillary, the world would change if men and women really got into their hearts and started expressing fully. The world would change overnight.
Oh, I know it would. I agree with that 100,000%. Those of you who are just joining us, you might be listening in. I'm talking to Cate Montana. She's a former editor for ABC, NBC, ESPN, and CNN, and she is author of Unearthing Venus, My Search for the Woman Within, and we're discussing her book. Her website is catemontana.com. The links are on my homepage right here on Achieve Radio, and you're welcome to go ahead, and as well as the book link to Amazon if you're interested in purchasing it. So I'm really fascinated by this conversation, Cate. And as you're talking, I'm kind of forgetting I'm on the radio, which is a dangerous thing to do because I'm following your words. I'm like listening to what you're saying, and I'm going off into these places. And I'm currently writing a book about oracles and the return of women's power through their ability to become oracles and be able to be visionaries in a modern day world, and what that means and how we teach our daughters that. And so when you're talking about this feminine aspect of coming back and the struggles and the challenges for people to define what that is, from your perspective, when you were busy going, doing for all of these high powered positions you held with major news networks and stuff, when you first started to back off of that and do more being, or be more being, or just stop the doing, was that difficult for you? I'm sure it was, but what was your greatest challenge with that specifically? How did you switch from this linear brain thinking to more of an oracle, more of a visionary, more of a woman settled into her own?
Well, that was an interesting transition, and it's still going on in its own right. You don't do it overnight. You don't do it in a couple of years. You don't even do it in 10 years, I don't think. But when I first left television and left the fast lane, I went and moved into a one-room stone cabin up in the mountains of North Georgia. And as you know, reading the book, and I lived on an 80-acre farm in the middle of absolute nowhere, with my dog, 2 dogs, a cat, and a Lipizzan stallion. And I rose with the sun and set with the sun, because for a few months when I first moved into the cabin, I didn't even have electricity. And it was a breathtaking switch from, being on 2 to 3 jets going to different cities a week, and working in live sports network television, to being completely isolated and going, well, now I'm going to go within and meditate. So, I slept a lot. And then I'd been out there about 6 months, and I started realizing that I thought I was actually very ill, because I was so tired, Hillary. And I thought, oh my God, I've got chronic fatigue syndrome. I could hardly, so I thought about going to a doctor. This is about 6 months after I'd gotten out of the rat race, and I'm just like sitting in the woods looking at my navel, and I was about to call a GP and make an appointment, and I was meditating, or doing my best to meditate, because my mind was absolutely still berserkoid, all over the map. But I realized that I wasn't tired and I wasn't sick. I was relaxing. I didn't know what it was.
Wow. That's just, to hear you say that is just like, ding, 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 we have a winner. We have somebody who gets it. You were relaxing, and how many people out there can relate to that right now, listening to those words? I mean, how many people can feel, I mean, you know how many times I hear from the women in my life, from all different areas, you know, I haven't done anything today. I say, great, that's good. Mm-hmm. How does it feel? Do it for another day. Mm-hmm. And they go, what? That's, you know, I have so much stuff to do. I was relaxing. Your body did not even recognize it.
Nope. My body recognized it, but I didn't, because my mind was so busy still working it over, and I should be this way, and I should be that way, and I should be more productive, on and on and on. And I still do that. And I mean, for God's sake, Hillary, I mean, at that point, I bowed out for 2 years. I spent 3 years in that cabin, and I didn't do anything for the first 2 years. I was fortunate enough that I came into a chunk of money, and of course my rent for a cabin with no electricity and no indoor plumbing was $25 a month, so it wasn't exactly an exorbitant amount of money going out the door, and it was back in the 1980s. So what a fortunate thing to be able to do that.
Yeah,
but it took that for me to unwind sufficiently to really be able to start tapping into my spiritual nature. And, you know, I can almost hear people all over going, oh, God, I can't go live in the woods for 2 years. You know, it's like, there's no easy answer for this, but I think that the way we're evolving and the methodologies that we're using, you know, life is amazing, and there are no rules with life. And the rules and structure are part of the wonderful masculine gifts that come to the table. But the other side of the coin that we're still learning and struggling to embrace is this wild, chaotic thing called life that evolves. It has its own intelligence. And I've gone from like you, I'm sure, and like most of my friends, I mean, there are some days I am in the absolute pits of despair when how do I start my day? I start my day with about signing like 5 or 6, petitions from the Sierra Club or from MoveOn.org or Ultraviolet or what, just trying to stem the flood of disaster that seems to be going on and flushing the whole planet down the toilet. And there are times when I despair. But then I remember, oh, wow, there really is a big picture. It's called life. It has its own intelligence. And we are here in this moment in time exhibiting basically probably about the 12 to 13-year-old state of evolution of a child culturally. And as above, so below, as within, so without, microcosm and macrocosm. We're as a species, our species develops just like a child develops. And so we're at this incredibly dangerous, chaotic place and unbalanced place, looking for ourselves as a species. So we did the whole prehistoric, we're all one with nature, and then we became individualized, and we express ourselves a certain way. Then comes in the alphabet and writing, and we've moved into a left brain development that hadn't been experienced in our species before. And now we've become, for thousands or several thousand years, we've been enamored with the linear left brain, logical, structured thinking. And it has catapulted us light years. Our technology is amazing. It's created a safe enough zone so that we can actually stop and worrying about daily hand-to-mouth survival and start looking within and developing ourselves in other ways. Now, the trick that I'm watching happen is that, and I hate to do the whole powers that be scenario, but there seems to definitely be the whole agenda by those who do like the hierarchy of structure and being the top dogs, or the 1/2 of the 1% of the world's population, being in control of the money system and making and making everything difficult and survival based around money is perpetuating the state of fight or flight within us. And how to move beyond that is the $64,000 question. and I truly, Hillary, it's like, I think we all know that the answer to all of our woes is a transformation in consciousness. Well, that's easy to say, but it's like, and so much of it, I thought, well, it's all answered if I go out there to God and I just somehow become whitewashed and pristine and pure and beautiful and happy all the time, then that'll be the transformation, or it'll change the world. And it's just like, but what we're missing is the rest of the picture of ourselves, which is categorized.
The roots into the earth, the mud, where the dirt is in the dark. Yeah.
The dark. Exactly. We don't want to see the chaos and the pain and the hurt and the confusion and all the mess inside us. And until we do, and that's the feminine realm. If we want to keep drawing these qualitative lines in the sand, the feminine is this amazing, chaotic. It doesn't depend on logic and linear and structured thinking. It is this gestalt that can be absolutely wild. It allows it all. And that's terrifying to a species that wants to be controlled all the time. So it can be safe.
Yeah, really. They want to be controlled. They like it. It's an element in our conditioning that the control is a way to keep us sustained. Mm-hmm. And that's not true. And what you said in the beginning of the show, which really struck me too, is that the masculine principle of doing will just keep going and going until there's no more trees. It will keep going and going until there's no more resources. It will keep going and going and going because nobody's there to say enough. Uh-huh. And that's that's the women that do that in that tribe that you live with. Cate,
exactly.
How was all of this transition and change in your life on your personal relationships? Are you willing to share some of that experience with us?
It's interesting. Ever since I finished the book, let's just say when I finished the first couple of passes on the book, was in the end of 2010, early 2011. And I have been out of a personal relationship since early 2008, and on a journey, as you know, to South America, working with shamans in the Amazon, and going to India, and the consecration of a divine feminine temple and lingam in India, and experiencing all these things. And then I wrote the book, and where I ended the book was where the rest of my life has kind of taken. You know how you write your own way, you write your own passage, you write your own path? Well, I ended the book going, wow, what would it be like to trust life in the body? Because I'd done the whole spiritual thing about being out there, and I'd done the whole material thing of just about, working and striving and making it mass to mass. So I'd done the kind of like the two polarizations of human expression, the struggle and the physical survival, and then the whole spiritual striving. And I was like, wait, what if I married the two? I got into my body. I stopped trying to get out of my body. I started feeling myself and not being afraid to feel everything that I feel, and not trying to feel happy and positive all the time. Which is a bunch of malarkey. None of us are happy all the time. Life is based on polarity. Life is, if you look at it like a sine wave function. You know what a sine wave is?
A sine wave? No. I mean, okay. I could guess.
Sure. It's peaks and valleys.
Yeah,
it's a curving, goes up to a peak and then comes down to a valley. And, our whole physical reality, our whole universe is based on polarity. Less than a second after the Big Bang occurred, we had positive and negative. We had electrons and positrons. So the whole fabric of our universe is based in this dynamic, and we go through it ourselves, day to day, moment to moment. And so this journey I am actually getting to answer your question. So this journey that I've been on ever since I finished the book, and I've started to realize there are these different elements called the feminine aspects of creation that I've not allowed myself to feel or express. So now I'm moving into embracing all of my emotions, all of my feelings, my physicality, and it's been an incredible ride. Now, how it's changed my relationships is, I have to say that it is deepening them, and the more I'm just going into and feeling my own self and not judging everything that comes up in me every 5 minutes as bad and wrong, or I shouldn't be this way, or I shouldn't feel this way, or express this, or I shouldn't be angry. And now I'm just accepting myself more, Hillary. I am a lot more compassionate for other people. I have my patience quotient with others has expanded exponentially. Because I'm getting off my own back and expanding into a more heart-based realm that is taking the time to stop and taking the time to feel and taking the time to embrace everything that washes through my being and stopping with the labeling. Yes, I still do it, sure, but at least now I'm aware of what I'm doing when I do it.
So it's a breakthrough. It's like you took yourself apart in the jungles and your time, in the mountains and in your alone time, and it was a kind of death, I'm sure, in many ways. And now you're putting yourself back together. It's like the resurrection of the divine feminine within you. That is that integrated piece. Yes?
Yes, absolutely. Because what it comes down to is, in the divine feminine, we've already kind of touched on this, is when you think about the divine feminine, all these images pop into our heads. I don't know about you, but I see women in Renaissance velvet gowns and Celtic earth goddesses under the moon and goddess tarot decks, or I think of the Holy Mary Mother Virgin, suffering, holding her dead son. There are all these images that come into people's minds, associations when you say the words the divine feminine. And again, that's very polarized. But in a deeper conversation and contemplation on this whole thing, I have really finally come to understand that the feminine is everything that is in creation. It's what can be seen. It is the face of God. The feminine is everything. It's men and women and penises and vaginas and X-Men and Barbie dolls, and it's everything. It's thought, it's emotion. Because looked at it, the very most ineffable source, spirit, God, the all in all, whatever you want to call it, is abstract, intangible, unknowable, ineffable. It can't be touched, seen, understood, or explained. So then we have the other side of the coin of life, of God, which is that which is seen, the spirit made flesh. And I paid, oh God, I can't tell you, Hillary, how I paid lip service to this whole concept of flesh is God made flesh. And I just nodded my head and went, yeah, lip service only, because I really thought that the abstract and the intangible was better than the physical. I had refused to marry it because we've got this incredible religious, whitewashed smear that's occurred in the last several thousand years from the core of the ancient Abrahamic traditions that, is all about demonizing the body. The body is the great barricade to God. Well, it's also the great doorway to God because it's all God. And so it's been this journey to embracing the divine feminine has been about embracing my whole humanity.
I like that. Your humane humanity. We're going from humans to humane, and that's really the key, is that moving into your heart makes you compassionate. It allows you to forgive. It moves you into a different space. And so many people try to find the center of their mind, but they don't even bring that powerful force down into the heart. And the heart has I believe the heart has a larger electromagnetic field than the brain does. Somebody told me a story
60
once.
times.
Yeah,
60
so I
times
mean, we're dealing with a powerful connection to the world around us, the other electromagnetic fields that affect us, the cycles, the sun, the moon, the cosmic cycles, the earth cycles. All of this stuff affects us through the heart. And if we're not even acknowledging that we have one, boy, are we really disconnected, and we're really in trouble. So, you know, we're kind of coming to the last 10 minutes of the show or so. So what do you see as the vision for what we are going to be moving forward as a woman who's been through this tremendous journey, who has shared it publicly, who has the experience of what that whole journey is really like? How do you feel this fits into your personal destiny of how you're going to be at this point in the world moving forward? Not, you know, in all dimensions, yourself, you know, and also collectively with other people. I know it's a big question, but I figured it would be really wonderful to hear your thoughts on how you would navigate that.
I wish I knew. I wish I knew. I mean, it's. I find myself. I've got a wonderful friend who's a novelist, and she's always on me about not drawing conclusions, because I'll write something, I'll write a blog, and then sometimes she'll read something, and she'll go, "Kate, you're trying to draw conclusions. You're trying to say that you actually know what you're doing. You're trying to say that yes, this is how it is." And I'm like, "Oh, yes, you're right, Dion. I so want to know how it really is."
I think it's a woman's trait. I think that's one of the women's traits.
Oh, it's
we need
human.
to know. We have to know. You know, that brings up an interesting question that kind of pops right to the forefront of my mind, and that is how, you know, we're really reminding women too, when we share these kinds of powerful stories, to trust their intuition, to trust
Absolutely.
that voice inside of them, because how many people are stuck in jobs like you were in? And I say stuck in a respectful way, because they don't know how to get out of them necessarily, and they feel kind of like, you know, they've been trained to be a man and released to be a man. But to trust that intuition, because naturally, growing up in the culture that we have, we're taught that that is just silliness, and that listening to that voice within is absolutely a career killer. Can be a relationship. Don't, you know, just let those voices go away. Do you feel that that's part also of what you've had to really accept inside yourself?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that, you know, I'm actually going to kind of go back to your question before this last one, is that I think it's the most critical thing that I'm doing, and that I think everybody, which would help us as a species advance the most, is to start embracing the reality that heart values, life values are critically important to start supporting and embracing as important. And standing up in our lives and making decisions, even the smallest decisions. Do I buy something that's overly plastic wrapped, or do I buy something that, you know, comes from the local farm? Do I support local agriculture? Do I buy organic? Simple things that we start making life supporting sustainable choices. And the more we support life, and I mean, do you support, you know, your kids playing violent, female denigrating video games? I mean, these choices we make every day, Hillary, are what, you know, because we're just programmed to do it the old way. And once we move into our heart and start, what does my heart say? Does my heart want the family to watch this particular show tonight, where I watch one more woman being raped and abused? Is this where my heart is best expressed? Does this touch my heart? Does this open? Or does this shut the heart down even more? And so I think those are the most important questions. That's what I'm asking myself every day, all day long, is to start making life-affirming choices for ourselves in the face of living in a society that doesn't think that heart values have any value whatsoever, that's actually, that they have no place in the quote-unquote real world, which is back to what real world are we creating? We have to start standing up for decisions and choices in life that expand us individually and our family and our community. And so that's the direction I'm responsible for myself in that way, and all I can do is follow my heart the best I can. And everything else, really, life supports us, Hillary.
It really does. When we start to trust that. Yeah, and it's trust. It's about trust. Trust is another feminine. It's not even a male or female aspect. It's a unisex aspect, because the trust goes across the board in every little niche and nook and cranny of our being, and we have to learn to trust ourselves and others, and be in relation with trust. I think I trust you is almost more important than I love you, because the trust.
I hear you.
Yeah, it kind of cracks the code. It breaks down the barriers, the cultural barriers that we've put up, the conditional barriers that we've established, and any kind of pain or abuse or anything that we've experienced in our life. We have to kind of crack that shell and allow life to come back in, because we have already made an agreement on some level that we're shut off to that. So people really need to understand that unearthing means letting go and coming out of the shell, right? It's Unearthing Venus. I love the title of your name, by the way. And the goddess plays a part in your journey as well. And, the yin and the yang and Gaia, and moving into the wise woman. I mean, the chapters, I love the title of your chapters, by the way. So when you move into the wise woman, what does it mean for women to come into their own as wise women? That's my last question for you tonight.
I think it's my felt sense. I started with thinking. My felt sense is that we start trusting our heart and our intuitive processes. We start leaning on life processes. We start leaning in. Don't lean in, girls. Lean back. Lean back and trust life. It really does take us where we want to go, and it's the scariest damn thing you can possibly do. Because we're taught it's all, the more you manipulate everything, that's the only path to safety. But it's not true.
It's not true.
It's not true. So every little bit that we can reinforce, making the choices of opening up our hearts and opening up our feeling sense and letting it all be okay, then things start showing up. Our electromagnetic bands, our aura expands and lets more life in. The more we let it in, and the more we allow ourselves to feel. Take time. Put down the text. Put down the iPhone. Shut off the TV. Take that time. It's really there. But it's all. Here we go back to values and the choices that we make based on the values that we have. And I
was sitting in an orthodontist office with my son the other couple weeks ago, and it was astonishing because it was packed. There was barely a seat open, and it was filled with a lot of people, and every single one of them was on a phone. Man, woman, child. Everyone was in their own little world with the phone right in front of them, or the iPod, and it was complete and total absorption into whatever it was they were all doing. Okay. And I just watched it, and I'm like, how many of us see this on a daily basis, whether we're going through an airport or we're sitting in a restaurant or in the mall or wherever we're shopping or whatever it is that we're doing, or we're in a doctor's waiting room or something, and we see people completely absorbed into this other world and completely unaware of really what's going on around them. I wonder how many people are actually even in their body now with the new technology coming into all of and how much more will it go from there, especially with younger generations.
Absolutely, and I haven't got a clue, Hillary. I mean, part of me would like to label it as, this is a terrible direction that we're going in, this is bad and wrong, this is everything that you just said, and I'm nodding in agreement as you're saying it. And yet at the same time, if I step back and look at the mystery and just allow the mystery of life and trust evolution, it's just like, okay, well, this is a phase we're going through, and this too shall pass. And that's the long view, and that's not a normal. I mean, we're not used to thinking like that. But when we start tuning ourselves to life processes and the seasons, and we just take those deeper breaths and we go into our own being and our own felt sense and our own heart.
This is not a valid menu.
I think we're running out of time. We're actually in overtime.
Okay, we're in overtime.
Thank you,
Hillary,
Kate.
this has been so wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Cate Montana, everybody. CateMontana.com. Links are on my page. Thank you. I will be joining Matthew Hurtado in the next hour on his show, Up the Orphic Ante, and I will be doing readings if you'd like to join me there. I will be there next. Thanks, everyone. Until next week. Namaste.